So hi guys, back with another recursion questions. So we will be solving couple of recursion question, right? So we will be solving first occurrence, finding the first occurrence of the element, finding the last occurrence of the element, and finding all occurrence of the in an element, right? So let's get started with the very first problem. So what we have given in the problem statement, let's suppose you have given this array, right? Let's 2 4 6 and let's say 4, right? So you have given this array. Let's map the indexes here. So what you need to do here is you need to return the first occurrence of the element, right? So you actually need to return the index of the first occurrence of the element. Let's suppose if your target element is 4, right? So in which index 4 is occurring first, right? So here you can simply see that 4 is occurring at 1 index and 3 index. So the very first occurrence is this one. So you need to return this one index as your answer, right? So hope you got the problems. Let's try to think about the solution. So you will be thinking like, yeah, it's very simple problem. We can just traverse like a linear search, and whenever we found out the target element, we will return the index, right? So pretty simple problem. But the catch here is you have to do it recursively, right? So it's kind you have to perform linear search recursively, right? So let's think about it. So I have already told in my live streams that what are the basic rules to tackling any recursive problem, right? So first step would be break down the problem, right? Break down the problem into smaller subproblems, right? And then recursively find out the answer. Recursively find out the answer, right? So what you can do here is you can check out, right? So let's suppose 2 is here, 4 is here, 0 is here, 4, and let's suppose one more element, 5, right? So what you can do here is you can check out the first element. If is 2 is my target element, no, then call from 1 to, let's mark this index 1 2 3 4. Call recursively on this part, right? Call recursively on this part, right? So you are just checking for nth element, and you are calling recursion on n minus 1 rest of the element, right? So rest of the thing recursion will do it, right? And again recursion will break down the problem into uh, another smaller sub problems. So recursion will check is 4 is my, so you are left with this array, you are left with this array. Recursion which will check is 4 is my target element. Yeah, 4 is my target element. Then it will return the index of this element, right? And if not, right, it's suppose our target element is 5, then again it will call on this part, right? And same goes for this part, it will check if 0 is my target element, no, then again it will call on 4 5, and at last we are left with 4 5, and then again I will call at 5. So that's how the recursion will proceed, right? So you might be asking what our base case would be, right? Let's suppose 0 2 4 2, and our target element is, let's suppose 2 here, let's suppose 2 here, our target element. Let's mark I at here, and right, and let's suppose the length of the array is n. So first I will be pointing to the 0th index element, then it will point to the uh, first index element, then it will point to second, and so on and so forth, and it will point the last element, right, which is nothing but n minus 1. If you see, right, if I at any point, if I is equal to n, it means it's already checked for all the elements and we don't have any element left, right? So it means that our target element is not present in the array, so it will return minus 1 from there, right? So code is pretty simpler. So in base case it would be like this: if any point I is equal to n, then simply you need to return 1, because all the elements are exhausted. And if at any point ith element becomes our target element, then we will return that I. Basically we have to return that index, right? And in the last case, what would happen? We don't have our target element at the ith position, then we call recursively on the smaller subpart. Basically we will increment our I value by 1, and we call that function, let's call this function as f, and n remains here, right? So it would be more clear if you see, if you write the actual code. So let's jump into the actual code. So these are the problems that we're going to cover. So let's just write the code. So let's just write the code. So in input, let's suppose we have this element, right? We have this element and we need to find out the first occurrence of the element, right? So let's take n as input and let's create an array, right? Array of maximum of 100 element, right? And let's take the input for these arrays, and let's write our function here. Let's call it first occurrence. Here you will pass the array and you will pass the index, the first index and the n, right? And basically you can just return out the index answer, right? So here it would be, we have n value is 4, and here you can write a function, right? So the return type would be, it will return index, so integer would be return type. So it has array and it has the starting index, it has n. So I told you what would be the base case. If any point our I becomes n, then we simply return -1. So our target element is not present. At any point our i's ith index element becomes our, let's suppose we have to also pass the target element, right? So let's call it target, and let's take target as input, and we will pass target And here we also need to pass our target element. So let's say target, and at any point our ith element becomes our target element. We will return that index, and rest of the part we will call recursion on the smaller part, right? So we will increment our I value and remain same, and target remains same. So this is the code. So let's try to run it and see what we will get. So yeah, it's run successfully, compile successfully. Let's run it. So actually we have to pass the key here, no? It will be nothing but 6. So yeah, it's not printing. Let's check out what's the issue here. So we had n values 4, and we take n inputs, and then we take a target element. We pass target, and yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think everything is fine here. Let's check it if it is working or not. Let's pass a test, and let's run one more time. So yeah, there is some issues. There is some issues with the input. So let's, why it's not working? I think that might be issues in the compiler. I will check it out and update the code in the description itself.